Welcome to Greenable Woodbridge. I am your host, Carolyn Ehrlich. Today's guest, when I asked him if he would be on the show, I got so excited when he said yes. I literally started jumping up and down because he's a phenomenal man and he does a great job with leading this state into sustainability. With us today is Joe Fiordaliso. He is the president of the BPU and has been a friend of mine for over 20 years. So thank you for coming and being with us today, Joe. I think where we should start is to talk about what the BPU is, because a lot of people don't know about all the great stuff that you do for them.
Good, thank you, Carolyn. I'm so happy to be here with you. We have known one another for a long time, and it's amazing how the years just
fly by.
The Board of Public Utilities is basically a regulatory body, and we regulate all of the investor-owned utilities in the state of New Jersey. Companies like Public Service, Jersey Central Power and Light, New Jersey American Water, as an example, and telecommunication to a lesser extent. That was the reason to start the Board of Public Utilities, and I believe Governor Woodrow Wilson initiated the Board of Public Utilities, so we're well over 100 years old.
Oh my goodness.
And it's when the electric company started to really take hold. And it's very exciting because over the years, what we've regulated and what we're regulating now has changed. And so we are, as I say, electric companies, gas companies, all investor-owned, water companies, investor-owned, the Verizons of the world to a lesser extent. And so it's a very exciting thing, and our mission is very simple, to provide safe, reliable service to the citizens of New Jersey at the most reasonable cost. Back in 1999, the legislature designated the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities as the Clean Energy Office for the state of New Jersey. And here we are with a governor who is probably the greenest governor in the United States and has such great initiatives. And the Board of Public Utilities is right in the middle of it all. And it's so exciting. It is so invigorating for me. I've been on the board for 13 years, and I was honored by the fact that Governor Murphy appointed me the president of the board in January of this year, and we have been doing some wonderful, wonderful things. So that's what the Board of Public Utilities is all about.
So let's talk about some of the things you're working on. Let's start with the offshore wind.
Oh, exciting. Offshore wind legislation was actually signed about 9 years ago, and it just was somewhat dormant until recently. And we have just went out a few weeks ago, for our first solicitation of 1,100 megawatts of offshore wind off the coast of New Jersey. Our goal, the governor's goal, is to have 3,500 megawatts of offshore wind power generation by 2030. And that will, if we can put it in homes, close to 2 million homes could be served by that.
That's incredible.
So it really is very, very exciting. We are getting international attention. We're working with our partners in Denmark and in the United Kingdom and in Germany, and New Jersey has become the place to be as far as offshore wind is concerned, and we really are so excited about it. These first solicitations will come in by December 28th, and then we will evaluate those solicitations, and probably have some ideas of who we're going to select, or who we may select by the end of spring, early summer, because it's quite a process. You know, we want to make sure that we get the best possible deal for the citizens of New Jersey, because it's you and I who are paying for it as ratepayers. And And people say renewable energy, clean energy is expensive. Initially it is, and there's no denying that. But let me just put something into perspective, if I may. Solar, as an example. And New Jersey just hit its 100,000th solar installation.
That is
State of New Jersey.
amazing.
And we're number 5 in the country as far as solar installations. And I always joke that the reason we're number 5 is that Florida and Arizona discovered they have sun, so they started building solar installations. The cost of a solar installation is 50% less today than it was in 2007. Mm-hmm. So the cost keeps coming down as more and more competition. The cost of manufacturing the solar panels and so on keep coming down.
And the panels get better.
So, and we're learning, just to pivot back to the offshore wind, we're learning more and more from our European neighbors about offshore wind. And it is really a very, very exciting adventure, and New Jersey should be proud of the direction that we're going. The governor wants 100% clean energy by 2050.
I was just going to ask you about that. So that's part of his clean energy plan.
Exactly
so
right.
So this gets you there, and so tell us about that plan.
Well, we're also in the process. We have a lot on our plate as I continue here. We're also in the process of preparing an energy master plan, which will be completed by June of 2019. And this energy master plan really is a roadmap that is going to hopefully show all of us how we're going to get to this clean energy, 100% clean energy by 2050. And it's going to be quite a document. And it's not a document that's just going to go on a bookshelf somewhere and gather dust. It's going to be a document that's going to be used. It's going to be a living document. And so that's another one of our areas. And, you know, folks might say, well, why are we going through all this? Why is it necessary to promote wind-generated power or solar-generated power or hydroelectric power? Not that we have a lot of that in New Jersey. But power that's generated by sources other than fossil fuels. It's very important. I am sure your viewers, and I know the mayor, and you've looked at these reports that the United Nations has issued, a report that the White House has issued, which they unfortunately have put into the basement. Climate change is real. Climate change is something that is going to, and is today, affecting our lives. And it's only going to get worse if we don't try to mitigate the effects of climate change.
Right.
An interesting statistic, which really, I think it boggled my mind a little bit. They say if we can keep the temperature rise below 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, we can minimize the effects of climate change.
Wow.
Just those 3.5 degrees.
And everything you're doing here
is hopefully going to do that, because the climate or the temperature of the Earth has increased by 1.2 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're moving up, and that's why we're seeing icebergs melting. We're seeing rise in ocean levels. We're seeing more dramatic storms. We're seeing more extreme winters. We're seeing hotter summers. Of the past 22 years, we have experienced 20 warmest years on record, just in the past 22 years. This is frightening stuff.
Right.
And you know, Carol, somebody told me, it wasn't a compliment, they'd say, well, you know, what do you care about it? Your runway is getting shorter. I said, well, yeah, my runway...
Like you don't have children or grandchildren.
My runway may be getting shorter. I said, but I have grandchildren.
Right.
And I hope they have children. And I hope their children have children. I really look at it, and I think the governor does too, because he's very passionate about this. I really look at it as a responsibility that you and I and everyone in your lovely town and everybody in the state of New Jersey and everybody in America and throughout the world have a responsibility, an obligation to really do whatever we humanly can possibly do to minimize the effects of climate change. And I would even submit we have a moral obligation to do that.
I would agree with you. And, you know, I always simply define sustainability as what we do today affects tomorrow.
No question.
And it's just that straightforward. And when you talk about it as a kind of moral obligation, it's also a feel-good obligation.
Well, it is.
Like your job, you have to be feeling good because every day you're working on ways not only to make your life and your children's life and grandchildren's life and New Jersey, but the whole world, the whole planet, a better place to live. And that can't be more significant than that.
Well, that's the goal. Exactly. And what you're doing here in Woodbridge, what Mayor McCormick is doing here, I mean, there's no other town or city in the state of New Jersey who could say they got 9 sustainability awards.
Yep.
So you're leading. You're showing an example. You're presenting something that all towns should be striving for, and we have to make people aware that we all can participate in reducing our reliance on fossil fuels.
It's a littlest thing you do. Turn out the light.
Turn out the lights. I don't know about you, but when I was a boy growing up in Newark, and I walked out of a room and I left the light on, my mother would let me know that I left the light on, and she said, "What do you think, we're in partnership with public service?" But that's it. Just turn out the light.
Yep.
You know, I mean, so they have LED lights today that use less energy.
Yes.
It's nothing that is extravagant. It's nothing that is going to change one's way of life.
And BPU has programs to encourage people to get those lights. So let's take a minute to talk about clean energy a little bit.
All right. Well, I would encourage your viewers to go on njcleanenergy.com because they can view the various programs that we have, the various things that we are promoting. And, you know, the cheapest energy is the energy you don't use. So these LED lights use less energy. Shutting out those lights obviously use less energy. And there are things we can do, turning down the thermostat a degree or two. It's not going to affect us.
Having programmable
thermostats. And energy efficiency is, I think, going to be one of the major areas of the energy master plan I referred to earlier. And that energy efficiency is extremely important. And it's making people aware of what we can do together. And when I say do together, I mean that. We just initiated a pilot program for community solar.
I've been following that. That is so interesting.
And one of the reasons we're thinking about that is everybody should be able to participate in trying to reduce our carbon footprint. And it shouldn't only be the people who can afford to put solar panels on their house. It should be people who can't afford. They should participate or have the opportunity to participate. And that's what community solar is all about. And 40% of any community solar installation has to be dedicated to low and moderate income people. We want everybody to have the opportunity to participate, and the governor calls it environmental justice. And that's what it is. You know, we should all have that opportunity. You know, if you put holiday lights out on your home, why do you keep them on all night? People go to bed, they're not looking at your holiday lights, right? So when you go to bed, shut them off.
Right.
little things that save. We're looking at carbon, zero-emission vehicles. Whether they're electric, hydrogen, whatever. Transportation is one of those areas we have to tackle because it's the primary pollutant that's going into our air. Just look at our own state of New Jersey, the most densely populated state in the Union. And we can all relate to times when we sit on the turnpike or on the parkway or whatever, right? And all those fumes and all that gasoline that's being burned and so on and so forth. We have a goal. The governor has a goal. We want 330,000 zero-emission vehicles on the road by 2025.
Wow.
Now, that presents challenges for us. Where's the infrastructure? We're working on that.
So we're working on with a company to have electric charging stations.
Yes.
And so we're really excited about that. And they'll install them and they'll, maintain them and do all of that. This is a problem that we're having. I don't know if it's something you can help us with at BPU, but our laws say that we can't have long-term contracts. And so the contract can't be long enough for them to get their investment back. And that's the kind of things that we're running into as a municipality.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. So, you can only contract for a certain period of time.
And they need at least 5 years
to get
their investment back.
Right.
And the same thing pretty much happens with the bike share companies.
Right.
Because
yes, I've heard about
too,
it. Right.
Yes. So we got to work with our lawyers to try to figure out a way to make that work.
Right.
But we're trying everything we can.
And that's why you've gotten 9 sustainability awards.
Right.
Because you do. And the mayor and the council really obviously are dedicated in making Woodbridge
another great
city.
thing that we're doing, but it's once again it's a problem because of our contracting laws. There's a company out in Texas that has a battery that you can put in police cars. One of the things that probably drives you as crazy as me is when you see the police car on the side of the road with the construction crew.
Yes.
And they're just idling away because they have to keep their engines running to work the lights and everything. So this company has a battery that you can put in the trunk, and you could turn off the car and the battery will keep everything running, and if they need to go somewhere fast, it takes like 10 seconds to get going. But once again, it's becoming a problem
unique.
Because we can't give a long-term contract and it costs that much to install and make the battery. So we're working on that. If there's anything you can do with DCA down there.
Well, you talk about batteries and so on. With wind, the wind's not always blowing, is it?
Right.
With solar, the sun is not always out, is it?
That's the argument people give all the time.
That's why we're working day and night, and they're perfecting it more and more. Storage. How do we store this energy?
Oh, you're so right.
And you have companies, and some of the famous companies and so on, that are working on these batteries for storage. And they're making progress daily on this, because one of the as far as the zero emission vehicles is concerned, people have distance anxiety. Well, I don't know about you, but when my car gets down to about a quarter of a tank, I start looking for a gas station, right?
I wait till it's on empty and they're going bing 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 bing.
You like to play on the edge, don't you? But it's true, and so that infrastructure, when you say charging stations or whatever kind of, we have to make that convenient for people. We have to make it so that the infrastructure is available.
Right.
And so on. So these are all things that we're working with at the Board of Public Utilities, working with our partners, working with the stakeholders, working with the communities, and so on. And I just wish that all the communities in New Jersey were as active as Woodbridge. I mean that sincerely.
Thank you. But with the Sustainable Jersey program, so many towns are
yes, they
doing a lot,
Yep.
and that's why I'm such a big fan of it, because it really tells people what they can do and how they can do it and why they should do it.
And that's why we continue to fund them.
PPU is phenomenal.
And
we would not exist were it not for you.
That's right. Well, that's why we continue to fund them, because they do get the word out.
Right.
And we're trying to develop a marketing plan as we speak to get the word out to people. Just to, as we said before, things that you can do, why we're doing this, how it's going to benefit us as a society, how it's going to make the lives of 9 million people better. And really, that's my philosophy of government is very simple. It's to make people's lives better.
If it's making it worse, then government's not working.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I know that's the governor's philosophy, and then it's exciting to be working in an environment where these initiatives are so important, because it's limitless what we can do. And Carol, we're attracting so many young, passionate, bright young people into the Board of Public Utilities because they want to be a part of this.
Yes.
Now, again, we still have our regulatory responsibilities. And we post those many nor'easters we had back in March, which was a pleasant experience, and we had thousands of people without power.
That's right. That comes under you too.
Exactly. So we initiated and directed the utilities to 30 more directives, regulations that they have to abide by. And post-Sandy, we had come out with 100 more. Now, are we ever going to eliminate outages? No. But if we can minimize outages,
or get the speed of repair.
Exactly. Better. If we can shorten the amount of time people are without power.
Right.
And that's where we're going, and that's our goal. So we work very closely with the utilities on these types of things, and have directed them to submit to us infrastructure enhancement and hardening programs that we then review and determine this is good, that's not good, because it all costs money.
Right.
And I just want to assure people that we're very prudent in our evaluation. We're very careful because, you know, I'm raising my rates too if we raise the rates.
Right.
And we realize that people can only pay so much. So we have to be very prudent and very careful in our evaluation process, and we are. And state government is, and state employees sometimes don't get the credit that they deserve. There's so many dedicated folks.
Yes.
So many people who are looking out for the interests of the citizens of New Jersey.
Right.
And it really is rewarding. And I've been in public service pretty much my whole life. And I can't think of anything more rewarding to do.
I agree with you. You're always giving back.
Yep. And it really is. And as you said before, you know, you can go home at the end of the day and say, well, maybe I just made one person's life a little better.
Yes.
And isn't it all worthwhile?
You're doing that all the time, every day.
I hope so.
So we only have a few minutes left, and I don't know if you hit on everything you wanted to. The transition solar, I know you had mentioned before.
Yes.
If you want.
The solar industry, and I thank you for bringing that up because I almost forgot to go into detail on that. Because I could probably speak an hour. You know, I've been filming
We've
2
done
hours.
it.
Back in the early 2000s, after the legislature designated the BPU as the Clean Energy Agency for the state, we had very few solar installations. Very few. You know, I always joke and said, I think back in 2000 we had 6. I don't know if it was 6. But as I said before, we have over 100,000 now, and which is really remarkable. And at that time, it was based really on incentives, where we would give people money.
Woodbridge got a huge grant from BPU.
Then in 2007 or 8, in that time frame, we came up with a program with solar renewable energy certificates, or SRECs, which helped to fund the construction of solar arrays, which took some of the burden off the ratepayer.
Right.
We're now exploring a transition from that to further reduce the obligation or the funding that comes from ratepayers. I'm really a firm believer in the fact that government, if there's a societal benefit, government has an obligation to light the fire.
Right.
And help it along. But it's like raising a child. You know, when that child's an infant, you do everything for it, don't you?
Right.
But as that child grows, mommy and daddy kind of pull back a little bit.
Yeah.
Until then, they are on their own, right? This is what we've done with the solar industry, and we're now ready to move into the next phase. So we have a consultant on board who's working with our staff and working with the stakeholders, the solar industry, because we always work with the stakeholders. They're the experts. Give us your ideas. How can we make it better? And then we balance that with, well, okay, you told us how you can make it better, but now how does that fit into the budgets of the ratepayers? So that's the stage we're at now, and we're starting to explore the next step in solar incentives, and they're going to continue to decrease, which is wonderful. The solar industry alone, and this is another thing that we fail to talk about a lot when we talk about clean energy and renewable energy, the economic enhancements it brings to the state. As an example, solar. There are over 7,000 people working in the solar industry today that didn't have jobs when it's... Right?
Yep.
With wind, there are going to be thousands of jobs available. And again, it enhances the economic vitality of our state.
Yep.
So does clean energy, renewable energy cost money? Yes. But it also brings economic activity to the state of New Jersey. So you got to balance that.
It's win-win.
Exactly.
And to quote my mayor, it's about 2 greens. The green of the environment and the green of the money.
Exactly
and
right.
That's what you do. So, and I think that's a good note to end this show. And the work that you and BPU and everybody who works there and the leadership of the governor has really helped to make this state and this planet so much more sustainable. And I thank you, and I really, really appreciate that you took your time to come here and visit Woodbridge.
Well, thank you so much, and I thank you for the invitation. And all Woodbridge ever has to do is pick up the phone, and we're here.
Oh, thank you. Great. So, thank you for watching Greenable Woodbridge and for being part of the change and part of the excitement.